The Oklahoma City Thunder suffer their first playoff loss of the postseason. What went wrong against the Dallas Mavericks and what should change for Game 3?
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, me member, and Inside the Thunder beat writer Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LO ThunderPod. On today's show, we're talking about the Thunder's first postseason loss. After sweeping the New Orleans Pelicans, after going up 1-0 in a blowout win over the Dallas Mavericks, the Thunder suffer a loss at the hand of these very Mavericks as things look different in Game 2 than they did in Game number 1. Today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go check them out today. It's the easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedInNBA to use LockedInNBA as the code for your first deposit match up to $100. There's a lot of different angles that you can and we will take this game. There's a reason why we're doing our playoff dash daily during the postseason, because the postseason is like an onion, many layers to it as you peel it back. One layer of it is, I know that the majority of you listening are Thunder fans, and this sucks to suffer a loss. The first Thunder loss since April 5th, the first loss for the Thunder with Shai healthy since March 24th. But also just the emotions and the swing and the pit in your stomach and everything that comes with a playoff roller coaster game. You got to feel that again. That was fun. I know it didn't end up great, but like this was the first game that felt playoffy, because those Pelican games, you know, there were some competitive ones in terms of the final score, Game 1 in particular, but like it didn't feel like this. This felt like it had so much more consequence because, you know, losing a game to the Pelicans last series would not have swayed anyone's opinion. Every game of this series matters, and now, you know, you're obviously playing on your heels a little bit heading to Dallas, and there's so much to get into, but like just the sheer emotion of this game, I think did matter. But the Mavericks, you know, never led by more than 14. However, they did a fantastic job of keeping the Thunder at arm's length. There was only 4 ties in this one and 2 lead changes. So for as many runs as the Thunder would put together, the Mavericks did a good job of counteracting them outside of that third quarter barrage where it felt like, whoa, maybe the momentum is completely shifting here. Outside of the third quarter, the Mavericks did a good job of just keeping steady the entire game. And surprisingly enough, you know, this game can be viewed in a multitude of ways of like glass half full, glass half empty. How much do you want to dive into it? Because the rebounding battle was just a +3 for Dallas. The turnovers were 10 apiece. You look at the points in the paint, OKC was a +10, typical. Second chance points, Dallas won it big, 14-8, typical. Fast break points, OKC won it 16-13. Typically, the Thunder do win fast break points, although they typically win it by a larger margin. What it really comes down to is the Dallas Mavericks shot 48% from 3. And a team that has Luka Doncic on it, for as great as he is, if you're going to have your role players help you combine as a team to 48% from three-point land, you're going to win that game. Just as had the Thunder shot 48% from 3, they're going to win that game. And so if that's all the baseline that you want to get into, that then you can be on your merry way. But there's also some deeper things that happen in this game that kind of go beyond the traditional stats. So OKC shoots 47, 33, 94. This is what has been the best three-point percentage team all year long in OKC that shot 33% from distance tonight, whereas Dallas shot 46, 48, and 70. I think that this was a certain aspect of Luka looked like Luka. And when I say that, and it's going to be, Luka's back and Luka's, back in his groove. I refer you back to the recap podcast we did following Tuesday's game, where while giving credit to Lou Dort, I said, look, some of those bounces are going to go in for Luka next time. We've been watching Luka for a long time now. That touch is special. That shot making is special. And he made the shots to make or miss league. Now, he did not drive still because of that knee injury, but everything else was there. 5 for 8 from 3, 11 for 21 from the floor, 29 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 steals, and a block. I think that Thunder fans might soon regret the Luka sucks chance and things like that, because Luka's a player who really feeds off of that, but it's all in the nature of the postseason. But whenever Luka puts up a stat line like this, and you look across the bend, right? You look around the corner, and here's the PJ Washington game where he shoots free Slurpee day at the 3-point line, 7 for 11 at 7-11, right? Always open in the corner, and goes for 29 points and 11 boards. Yeah, the Mavericks are going to win that game every single time. So, before we get into anything about what the Thunder did wrong and what the Thunder need to fix, if you're going to tell me that Luka's going to put up 29, 10, and 7, and PJ Washington's going to put up 29 and 11, let's just end the series today. Let's call it good. Because that's without a good Kyrie game. That's without a good Derrick Jones Jr. game. That's without a good, Derek Lively game, without a good Gafford game, who was battling injury, and it was credit to him for kind of gutting it out. He dislocated his finger on the backboard for a contest. But if you're going to have the PJ Washington game in conjunction with the Tim Hardaway Jr. game, where he reared back and got his fastball like the fifth starter who used to be an ace on the dog days of July, and you're like, whoa, where did this come from on the hill to kind of snap a 3-game losing streak? Tim Hardaway Jr. went back and got it after a lot of people in Dallas were out on THJ. Josh Green goes 3 for 5 from 3. A guy who you felt comfortable leaving open in both games, and he made you pay in this one. So if all these things happen, then the Mavericks are going to win not only this series, not only against the Thunder, they'll win against any team if they're playing like this. But they're not going to play like this every single game. That's not a slight on Dallas. That's not to say that they can't win the series because of that. The question now becomes, where does this series level off at? If it's not a 29-point game from PJ Washington, and I still think he's going to be a good player, where does that level off at? If it's not a 17-point outburst from Tim Hardaway Jr., where does he come down to? And in turn, if it's not a 9-point game from Kyrie, which I don't think anyone should ever expect ever again, how far elevated does he get? And we've seen Kyrie get very, very, very elevated. So that's from the Mavericks perspective, and that's where, after game one, as the Thunder held Dallas to 95 points, I was still cautious, cautioning people of hey, great job, but these Mavericks are going to hit tough shots. And they did that. Like Luka hit unbelievably tough shots. You can get frustrated with Luka for the antics of playing into the crowd, of complaining to the refs. You can get upset with him for the hokey pokey, is he hurt or is he not hurt gimmick. You can get upset with him for a lot of different things. But you also have to respect that he's one of the best tough shot makers you've ever seen. And a lot of this, which sounds crazy because anytime you give up 29 points on 52% shooting, you don't want to give credit to the defense. A lot of this was quality defense. He got a few of them loose off Giddy. A lot of them were quality defense and tough shot making. And that's what Luka's capable of. That's why a month ago, as we were mapping out who would you want to see in the first round for OKC, I was very hesitant to put Dallas anywhere below 2, and I really had them as the team that you're most afraid of, because Luka can just take over a game like this. And he'll do it again this series. How will you respond? Now, with all that being said, for as fantastic as we just talked about the Dallas Mavericks, the Thunder had a shot to win this game. The Thunder had a shot to win this game. And they have a ton of things on their end that they can do better. And a ton of things that historically this season they have done better. And that's before you get into the weeds of we're going to talk about Josh Giddey, we're talking about Gordon Hayward and all that. Flat out, Chet Holmgren, not good offensively. Not a good game from him offensively. Jalen Williams, 7 of 17, some bad misses, didn't take over the fourth quarter. Like, those two things course correcting changes this game. Isaiah Joe 1 for 3 from 3. Wiggins 1 for 3 from 3 with some bad misses. And the bad misses in the sense of like, hey, those are shots that they make typically. Those are shots that they hit, and they did hit in game 1 that didn't hit in game 2. Those changed the game as well. But then you can also get into the weeds of how things are trending. And we'll do that coming up. But first, I want to say right now about our good friends over at Prize Picks. Check out Prize Picks right now. Because, folks, March is over. But that doesn't stop you from winning Prize Picks. Because now is a great time to go there with the NBA playoff action. You can win 100 times your money on Prize Picks as you go up and pick the best players of the world of your chosen sport in the NBA postseason. You can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Right now, you can turn $10 into $1,000 with basketball, hockey, baseball picks over there at Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Prize Picks has something for everyone. Whether you're into basketball or hockey right now in the playoffs or MLB, even League of Legends and other esports and things of that nature for you as well. You pick 2 to 6 players and you just project will they have more or less in their Prize Pick projections. And if you're correct, you win. That's it. You're not playing other people. You're not playing sharks who just dominate fantasy. It's just you versus the projected numbers. So go there right now to Prize Picks by downloading the app and use code LOCKEDONNBA. When you do, your first deposit match up to $100 will be there for you. So up to $100, we're going to deposit match you right there with code LOCKEDONNBA at Prize Picks on prizepicks.com/lockedon or Prize Picks app code LOCKEDONNBA. Check it out today at prizepicks.com. Also, want to say right now, but good friends over at eBay Motors. eBay Motors is fantastic because they understand what a championship level team is. It takes passion. It takes drive. It takes patience. That's also what it takes to keep your ride or die alive and maintain your vehicle leveled up to peak performances with superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Check it out today as they have over 122 million parts to choose from for your number one ride or die car. And make sure that your car is the MVP with the eBay Guaranteed Fit. Guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because right now with eBay Motors, you're going to be burning rubber, not cash, with all the parts that you need at the prices you want. It's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home a huge win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Motors Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. Well, the Thunder suffered their first postseason loss, and we've kind of given you the overview of what happened in this game. But now, let's get into the weeds. Josh Giddey had a dud of a game. Gordon Hayward was again a no-show, as he has been since the trade, right? Now, on the front end, the big caveat to everything we're about to say is that, one, even after tonight, you still full-heartedly should believe in Mark and his philosophy and what he is doing. Number two, I do believe there's a reason behind all of these questions we're about to present. And again, I still do believe in Mark's vision. And number three, I'm going to give Mark credit to start out, and then we're going to get into some disagreements. I said on the show, and I can't be hypocritical because I said on the show not even a week ago that the pathway for Gordon Hayward to me was throw him out there and try him and give him 4 minutes was the exact verbiage I used. Give him 4 minutes, and if he doesn't have it that night, park him on the bench and try again next time. But don't go back to the well as he did in game one, as he did previously. Don't go back to the well. Don't give him 7, 10, 12 minutes. Like, really, really limit him. And as frustrating as the -3 was for Gordon Hayward, it was only 4 minutes. And now 4 minutes is a big deal. And I do believe that we have enough of a sample size to say that Gordon Hayward should not get any minutes, frankly, because I think that right now when you look at Gordon Hayward, is it more advantageous for you, let's say Saturday, to go into Saturday's game and say, well, maybe Gordon Hayward, who has a huge track record of not performing, will start to perform on Saturday? And then give him 4 minutes and see if that works out. Or is it more beneficial to you to say, here's a guy in Kenrich Williams who's always performed, who the players rally around, who's looked upon as a leader, in this locker room, and brings the vibes and is going to give you heart, is going to give you hustle, is going to step up and hit and at least attempt threes, if not hit them, as he's really good in the corners. And not only is he not going to have a drop off of the size that Hayward gives you in the small ball lineups playing defense as a good team defender, but actually build upon them and perform better in that role. So who's it better to give those 4 minutes to see if they have it on Saturday? Kenrich Williams or Gordon Hayward? I think that the answer is very clear. I think that it's Kenrich Williams, just flat out. But again, I hate to be hypocritical after saying like, hey, it's whatever to give Gordon Hayward the 4 minutes. I just don't believe that you're going to see Gordon Hayward turn back into what he used to be. Right? I mean, he has not shot a 3-point ball since the Polk administration. He hasn't taken a shot attempt. There's been more fans hit a half-court shot than Gordon Hayward's hit one in this postseason by a wide margin. So, the Gordon Hayward thing, I get it. I get the frustration behind it. I would personally look at Gordon Hayward and say, well, whatever you're hoping on paper that he can provide you, you have other guys who for sure provide better output in every aspect. I mean, the real big talking point has been the fact that he provides you some size off the bench, on the glass, defensively, playing in a good team defensive role. And that's true. Gordon Hayward surprisingly has been up to speed and good as a team defender in this structure. But still, who would you rather have playing in that spot? Defensively, Kenrich Williams. Then you look at offensively, and that's the frustrating part of like, he's figured out the defense to be on the court in OKC, but it's the offense holding him back. Well, at that point, why not try Kenrich, who shot the ball well this year in his reduced role? So the Gordon Hayward thing is just going to be a talking point really forever. It's the new Wiggins talking point. As he gets 20 minutes tonight, I would have increased that for Wiggins. I think that Wiggins is a guy that you play nonstop. Like, you cannot have enough Wiggins minutes. 24 would have sufficed to put those 4 over to Wiggins. But now you talk about Josh Giddey. And Josh Giddey will be the big story. And I feel for Josh Giddey in the sense of, I hate to play sports psychologist. I hate to play coach on a pod. This game, speculatively, it looked like an emotional one for Josh Giddey. He was a minus 20 in 10 minutes, and he wore every single one of those digits. And I think that it was expressive in the way that he, wore that minus 20 in 10 minutes. And so you've got to worry about, like, you're going from this low, and the next time you step on the floor under bright lights will be in the same arena at which you hit your lowest point of your basketball career in February in the American Airlines Center. Like, what does that do for you? Like, where are you at that point? And I think that it's also unfair to Josh Giddey, frankly, to shoehorn him into a role that doesn't benefit him or the team. Now, last series, Josh Giddey did not start going until this thing went on the road, and he played great in games 3 and 4. He's still capable of that because all he needs to do is hit shots. And like, he hit shots in the Smoothie King Center. Can he hit shots in the AAC? I'm not out on Giddy by any means at all. However, I do think that there's just certain series that benefit other players. It's a tale as old as time, a song as old as rhyme. Every postseason, we talk about styles make fights. We talk about matchups. And we talk about how guys are played on and off the floor. And we talk about how things swing back to one guy or swing against a guy in a series. For this specific series against this specific team, Josh Giddey is not the right answer. And it's equally a Thunder construction problem as it is a Josh Giddey individual problem. Because the way the team is constructed, you're able to and want to relegate Josh Giddey if you're the Mavericks to a open shooting role, because you'd much rather go take away Shai, go take away Giddey, go take away Chet, and like load up on those guys than pay attention to Josh Giddey off ball. And Josh Giddey should not be asked to just be a simple catch and shoot corner shooter, right? He was never billed as that. He was never even dreamed of becoming that. You know, if you rewound this thing to 2021 and you were talking about Josh Giddey's one-of-one ceiling, it never included being a good catch and shoot three-point shooter from the corner. And that's what Dallas is able to relegate him to. That's what Jason Kidd has made the adjustments all year long on Josh Giddey. And I point back to the third game that these two teams played on TNT and OKC, where Josh Giddey plays well in the first half. And it was a good Josh Giddey game until Jason Kidd completely ignores him. And at that point, again, it's unfair to Josh to grade him on that scale. That's not the scale he should be graded on. So it's okay to just say, like, this is not a good series for Josh Giddey. There are only certain players in the league who get to play in the playoffs, regardless of matchup, regardless of series. One of those players is like a guy like Shai. Like, for example, against New Orleans, the Pelicans absolutely have full send the best defender to put on Shai and Herb Jones. That is a tried and true method of slowing down one of the best scorers in this league in SGA. But you can't let that deter you from how you play basketball, because SGA is one of the best players in the world, and you keep giving him the crack at it. But as you get further and further and further down this roster, right, and down any roster across the entire league and across the history of the league, those things change and things become more matchup dependent. And as of right now, Josh Giddey cannot play against Dallas. Cannot play on either side of the floor. Because what's happening with Josh Giddey, at least in this game, it felt like, was the offense was struggling yet again. Then that turns into a lack of engagement defensively. And Shai and Jada and Mark, all three spoke to that they lacked focus tonight. And I would translate, reading between the lines, focus to be defensive engagement and crisp rotations, all things that stacked up for them to win in game one. Did not happen in this game. I think part of that comes from when you miss shots, you're more frustrated. You're more, you're not getting calls and going to the line. You're more frustrated, and it all stacks up on. Then you have this letdown on a few backdoors, on a few defensive plays, on a few blown defensive assignments. So instead of Josh Giddey being the low man rolling over and walling up Gafford at the rim, he gives up too many steps on a Luka step back three, and he's playing way off of him for no reason, and it's an easy bucket, right? So like, it's not going good on either end in this game, and that's why he only played 10 minutes. But the bottom line is, to be a minus 20 in 10 minutes is an anomaly. Like, he's not going to be that bad again, I don't think. But also, it's okay to admit that, like, you just have better options, frankly, for this series. Now, you can't admit that with like Chet, for example. Chet did not have a good game, and people in Australia and like the big Josh Giddey fans might be commenting like, well, why aren't you harping on Chet's bad game? Well, you don't have any other option than Chet. And this is an outlier for Chet, of an outlier bad game for Chet Holmgren. But more importantly than that, you don't have any other options. Because you're playing Jay Will a good 14 minutes, and you're not going to put in Biyombo. You're not going to put in Muscala. So like you're just kind of stuck with Chet. And that's a good thing, because Chet's awesome, and Chet is a guy who you want to be stuck with, even as he shot 33% tonight. But for Giddey, you do have other options. You have many other options. And it actually opens up a lot for you. We'll talk about what it opens up coming up. But first one's here right now, but your friends over at eBay Motors. Check it out today at eBay Motors. It's going to be awesome. I'm sorry. At Monopoly Go. Monopoly Go is going to be awesome, just like eBay Motors was. Monopoly Go, you can go there and play in a variety of ways. You can either team up with your friends for timed tournaments and work together to build each other's boards. And the more you work together, the more awesome prizes you unlock and so much more. But you also can pull off bank heists and destruct their boards if you want to and play against them as you climb the leaderboards on your own. So it's a lot of fun, and it's a great way to play Monopoly. It's a mobile twist on the classic board game for Monopoly Go. It feels new and exciting every single day with a consistent changing tournaments and challenges and a ton for you to do, including their own unique mini games like going for treasure or a robot machine in there as well. There's always new timed events for you to go to, like the mass multiplier events as you win and have rent frenzies. So check it out today with Monopoly Go. Go there right now. Go download it for free on the App Store or Google Play Store. Game on at Monopoly Go. Game on. We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast, on the Lockdown Podcast Network, your teams every day. Here talking about the Oklahoma City Thunder falling to the Dallas Mavericks. Well, you look at Josh Giddey, and again, things can swing back his way, sure. I'm not fully out on Josh Giddey yet. I think that it can get there to a certain degree this series. And then you just try again, whenever the next time you play basketball is after the series, whether it's in the conference finals or whatever. But I think that you give him Saturday, and if Saturday doesn't pan out, then you're at a point where, okay, none of it matters anymore. The confidence, the long-term vision, the idealistic way to play, and the lineups you want to use. None of it matters anymore except for maximizing the 48 minutes that you're going to play basketball. And it can get to a certain point where it's do or die with Josh Giddey. Right now, I don't think you're at that point yet. I think that you go and you start the same five on Saturday. You start Shai, Josh, Lou, J-Dub, and Chet. But you have a very, very, very tight leash with Josh Giddey. If he's not crisp and engaged and active defensively, if he's not, performing offensively, well, at that point, you put in Kaysen, you put in Isaiah Joe, you put in Wiggins, and you just flood them with these guys that are better suited for defending and taking advantage offensively of the Dallas Mavericks. And that's what should be a good thing for OKC. The good thing is they can cover up their two flaws of like Josh Giddey and Gordon Hayward were flaws tonight. They can cover them up with players who benefit them. And part of that's going to be also, you got to play these guys more, right? Like, I know that you want to dig deep in your rotation, and that's what's gotten you to this point. That's been the girl you've brought to the dance, so to say. You got to dance with her. But by the same token, Jada played 38 minutes. You would like to see him play 40 plus, just like every other, top guy does on a playoff roster. Wiggins playing 20 minutes. You would like that to see that number go up. Even the 21 minutes for Kaysen, you'd like to see that go up. The 19 for Joe, you'd like to see that go up. And so like you can cut these moves on the margin, get these guys more minutes who have been productive players in the series, and it helps you go win. But none of it matters. To circle it all back and put a bow on this game for now before we crank out another podcast. None of it all matters if J-Dub has a lackluster game like he did in game 2. Like, that was not a J-Dub standard like gold star game. It also wasn't a terrible game or a bad game or even a below average game. It was just a non-eye popping game from J-Dub. And then if Chet is going to shoot 33% from the floor, none of it matters because like you're going to go as far as those three guys take you: Shai, Chet, and J-Dub. And Shai was fantastic tonight. 33 points, 12 rebounds, 8 assists, 1 steal, 2 blocks, 6 free throw attempts, went 6 for 6, 1 for 3 from 3, but a killer step back. That was a nice play. 54% from the floor. His playmaking was crisp, even though it at times led to clanked threes as the Thunder shot 38% from 3. He could have had a triple-double easily with some of those potential assists. But like, Shai was awesome. And you'd like to see Shai even get even more aggressive than he already was in this game. But you can count on Shai to be awesome again on Saturday. I think personally you can count on J-Dub to be better than he was in game 2. I think you can count on Chet to be better than he was in game 2. I think that you can count on this team to shoot better than 38% from 3 in game 3 than they did in game, of course, shot 38% in game 2. So now, where do you stand at that point? With a few minor tweaks, this thing can look a lot differently. That's the nature of the playoffs. The nature of the playoffs is always going to be, as you all know from watching the first iteration of the Thunder team, it's always going to be what if. What if you didn't play, give 14 minutes total to Giddy and Hayward? Who knows? I think that ultimately the Thunder will head into Saturday with no major changes. It's a 1-1 series. There was a lot of randomness and shot variance to this game. But after game 3, things get really, really serious. I mean, they're already serious, but things get dire either way. Because you either want to capitalize on that momentum or you want to rebound, of course, if you go down in the series. I'm also curious to see how this team responds. This Thunder team has not lost a postseason game until today. They hadn't lost in 10 games or whatever it was. They hadn't lost since April 5th. And they hadn't lost with Shai, where you feel like you have a full complement of your players, since March 24th. So now, how do you respond to tasting your own blood a little bit? How do you respond to Luka getting going, and not only getting going, but jawing a little bit, Kyrie jawing a little bit, the emotions that go with this series? And you're going to enter a postseason environment in Dallas that is like nothing you've walked into before. Because you look at Lu Dort's postseason experience, it's been the bubble in New Orleans. You look at Shai's, he got to play in Oracle. That was awesome. Like he's played in an environment like this on the road before. That was awesome for him as a rookie, but not as a number one option. Everybody else has just gone to New Orleans. That's a viable playoff rotational player. That's just gone to New Orleans. And that was, from firsthand experience being there, that was a tragically bad environment. That was worse than a regular season game in November. It was terrible. That was not playoff basketball in terms of the crowd. Dallas has one of the best crowds that are left in the postseason, as does OKC. It's what makes this series so great. How do you respond to now a rowdy Dallas crowd? Now Luka's feeling it in a groove, after this game tonight. Kyrie's chirping about Oklahoma post-game. Luka's chirping in the crowd. The crowd's giving it back to him, spurring him on. Like, now you've got a ball series. And now you've got bad blood. And now you've, kind of got it all. This is a real legitimate playoff series now. To this point in the season, they've given you every reason to trust them. Mark has, and every player on the roster has given you every reason to trust them to bounce back. And I think that they will. But you got to go prove it. And we'll see if they do prove it on Saturday. I'll be in Dallas to cover this series. We'll have another podcast Saturday morning to discuss some adjustments to game number 2 as we go rewatch the game on Synergy right now, probably, and get prepared for that pod. Until then, be good and be good to one another.